Welcome, everybody, to the Black and White History Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe. We are your hosts, Christian and...
The air is poison. I still can't get over the air is poison. I'm Jordan.
Yeah, if you, anyone hasn't seen our first part, you want to hear about the background of the war and then just kind of what the war was like with tech and trenches and just poison.
It sucks. It sucks to even talk about. And I'm indoors with indoor plumbing and electric lights, like whatever. I'm not going to rehash it. If you want to know about it, go back to the first part.
I'm like borderline shower twice a day kind of guy. Just like reading about this stuff is too much.
General, I can't go to the front lines. I need like, I don't know, I need like my facial exfoliant. Yeah. Where's my toner? Anyways, yes. So 1914, we've picked our sides. The Central Powers are Austria-Hungary, Germany, and the Ottoman Empire have kind of joined forces together. They are squaring up against Russia, France, Britain eventually, and the US eventually. We'll get to them. But right now it's mostly just Russia and France. So 1914.
Well, and Serbia.
And Serbia, yes, of course. I don't want to shortchange Serbia.
And Montenegro, I know we didn't mention that before. Doesn't really matter. Just
sorry, Montenegro. It wasn't. I don't want to shortchange Serbia because, like, this whole thing, like the overarching theme of World War I, is like this was essentially a regional conflict between the Austro-Hungarian Empire and Serbia, and the internal cultural issues and wanting to break away and versus wanting to keep the empire together. This was like a regional conflict, but because of all the alliances and deals that had been made around these other countries, once Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, that drew everybody else in. And once those guys got drawn in, then the rest of the world got drawn in. So it was just a domino effect. But so we're at 1914. Austria-Hungary has declared war against Serbia. And so that war starts kicking off. Austria-Hungary basically is like, oh, we'll just steamroll Serbia. Serbia says, no, you won't. This is our chance, boys. We're going to do it. Germany is, you said in the last episode, and it's really true, it's worth saying again, Germany is really like the big brother to Austria-Hungary, just like Russia is kind of the big brother for Serbia. So, and fun fact, the German Kaiser Wilhelm and the Russian Tsar Nicholas II, they are cousins. So there's interesting exchanges between those two rulers because they're like, hey, this is not going to work out really well. Do we really have to have a whole war about this? And they're kind of sending letters and telegrams back and forth. The problem with this, and kind of the problem with World War I in general, is that once the machine starts moving, you can't really put the brakes on. Germany and all the Central Powers and the Allies are mobilizing millions of troops. And you can't really just say, oh, no, stop everything, everyone go back. Like, the plan is in motion. It is out of, you would think if it was in anyone's hands, it would be the imperial rulers of these places. No, they're like, well, I can't really stop it. Could they have stopped it? I'm sure if they really, really wanted to, they could. But again, war is about money and it's about politics. And oftentimes, unfortunately, money in politics is put ahead of human life. Not that we have any, contemporary context for that, but whatever. So 1914, Germany is gearing up to fight Russia, but they also have to contend with France. Put up the map. Germany is right between Russia and France. Yeah. So they, and I have to admit, I kind of fell into this too before I started researching it. They figure, oh, Russia is really big and scary. They're going to be a really tough fight. But the French, they're kind of weenies. So here's our plan. The Schlieffen plan. Here's our plan. We are going to do a proto-blitzkrieg. Before it was blitzkrieg, we're just going to bum rush France. We're going to take out France. And once France is done, then we can really focus our attention on Russia.
Because part of it, Russia wasn't ready to go to war yet.
Yeah, Russia's a big place. It takes a while.
Well, and it's also, we don't have time to get into it, but there's the monarchy is about to fall, and there's a huge revolution, and all this stuff coming soon. And the Tsar and Rasputin.
Why is this magical wizard man making political decisions?
Yes. So which makes it seem like they'd be an easy first target, but it's like, well, France is the more stronger one, so let's just use what we got to get them out first, and then Russia's not going to stand a chance anyway. So
exactly.
That's the idea.
That is their Schlieffen plan. So part of the Schlieffen plan is we are gonna kind of do an edge up north into Belgium.
Yeah. So part of it though is France, because obviously they're neighboring. So it's like, why don't we just go right through? Well, France had been preparing actually for decades of Germany doing something like this, and so they had fortified like their borders to an insane degree, to where Germany wouldn't. It would be way too difficult for them to just try to bombard that side of it right on the border. So then they think, well, we'll just pass through Belgium and not go to war with Belgium. Just let us pass through, and then we'll get to France, and then you don't have to worry about it. But Belgium's like,
9.
yeah.
And also, no.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, you're right. Belgium was neutral.
Yes.
They said, no, we're out of this deal. Don't mess with us. We're not going to pick sides. And this is spoiler. This is how Britain gets involved in the war, because Belgium says, hey, we're going to be neutral. And Britain says, yeah, we agree with that. We're also neutral. So as long as you guys leave Belgium alone, we'll stay out of it. And then Germany says, well, if we do it fast enough, then we can kind of just waltz on through right on the edge of Belgium, take out France, and then it'll be a moot point. Because once Britain looks over and sees that we've taken over France, they won't really mess with anyway. That doesn't work. The Belgians don't take too kindly to being invaded. It doesn't matter what the Germans said they were doing. We're just passing through. No, you're invading our country, actually. And we would prefer you didn't do that. So the Belgians try to resist the Germans. Accounts vary. So obviously it's Belgian, like it's war. So some Belgian civilians are killed.
Yes.
There is a huge uproar in the US and in Britain and France because more than just casualties of war, the Germans are, again, were atrocities committed. Were like priests hung upside down at the bell towers in Belgium and used to ring the bells? Like, probably not, maybe, but the newspapers in these neutral countries ran massive headlines, like massive. Yeah. These are horrible war crimes are happening. This is just they're executing people in the streets and blah blah blah. And I'm sure some of that did happen.
Well, there's kind of this like confusing thing where you have Belgian civilians picking up arms.
Yeah, like a resistance fight.
Right. And so it's like, oh, but those are civilians. Why? It's like, well, we didn't know. And it's like, well, did you not know? Did you not care? Did some of you didn't know? And you're like, oh, whatever, it's already too late.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of just, it's not as clean cut like in World War II where there's like a clear bad guy.
No, yeah.
Clear good guy. This is way more like not based on like the good guys or like the moral ones. It's more of just like ideological and like confusing scenarios and stuff.
The Belgians are pissed off because they said for sure don't come in here, and the Germans definitely came in there. And yeah, if your country's being invaded, you're probably going to pick up a gun and start shooting at them. So I mean, according to the rules of law, that makes you a combatant even if you're not wearing a uniform. Actually, I think it's a war crime to be a combatant and not wear a uniform, just for that very reason, because like blurring the lines between killing civilians and armed whatever. The point is, the story happens, the conflict happens, and it gets blown, depending on how you look at it, either way out of proportion or only slightly out of proportion. But that pisses off England, and they declare war on Germany and thus the rest of the Central Powers. So now the British, the thing about the British that is interesting is that they are a naval power. They have no massive standing army. I think their army is really the British Expeditionary Force, and it's like 150,000 people at this point, like as a standing active army. But they send them across the channel, and we're going to France, boys. So England is now in this war.
Yeah. Well, not only that, then they cut off their. Did you mention their navy cut off
their big beautiful ships?
Okay. Yeah.
They put them in a blockade. Yeah.
Blockade. That's the word I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. So they send the British Expeditionary Force as ground troops into France, and on the back end, they send their massive navy. They have the biggest navy in the world. They have come up with a brand spanking new type of ship called the Dreadnought, and it's a big old boy. And they have like 30 of them. Now, here's the thing. Germany also has been spending a lot of their time and money building up a navy as well. They have similar classes of ships. The funny thing is that these ships are really, really big, but really, really expensive. So they're very reluctant to actually like have a shooting battle with them. They're like, don't you touch our ships, and we're not going to touch your ships. But the British have way more just numbers of ships to blockade Germany from getting food exported into or imported into the country to feed their citizens. So the British's plan is we're going to starve them out. We're going to we're going to destroy their economy and reduce their ability to make war, like domestically. At the same time, another piece of technology we didn't mention in the first episode is the Germans have submarines.
Oh yeah,
really. That is a big thing. If you don't know what a submarine is, I don't know how to help you, but they're boats that go underwater and you can't see them because they're underwater. So when the British start blockading Germany from getting supplies imported in, the Germans send their submarines, also called U-boats. I think that's like underwater boat. They send their U-boats and they start using torpedoes, underwater missiles, to blow up ships. Basically, they declare the area around England, the British Isles, as a war zone, which I suppose fair enough. And so they say any merchant ship that is traveling around there is free game, and we're going to sink that. We're going to sink that sucker. So enter the RMS Lusitania. So the United States is still neutral in this entire thing, but they are sending money and they're helping with supplies. They're sending it
neutral.
We are neutral.
We want the Allies to win, but we're not taking.
We're not taking sides, but we will give one side guns and money and stuff. They give a lot of money to the French. They give a lot of money and supplies to the British, and the way they kind of had their plausible deniability is by putting those supplies on British civilian merchant ships and sending them to Britain. Well, of course, the Germans caught wind of that and they torpedoed the RMS Lusitania, and there were American civilians. I think it's like almost 200 American citizens on board.
Over 100,
which upset the Americans quite a lot. But Woodrow Wilson, who was president at this time, basically was able to kind of stave off, like, no, we really don't want to get into the war, because his whole campaign was like, we're not getting in this war.
So we'll go more into that in our Woodrow Wilson episode.
Yeah, go back to that if you dare. So he manages to not get into the war after the Lusitania is sunk, but he does put enough pressure on the Germans to stop their unrestricted sub warfare, which is basically like, hey, our bad. We did send some like munitions and supplies to Britain, but it's not cool to just sink any ship that goes through there. That's crazy. We have to be able to traverse the oceans. And the Germans say, oh, well, fine, whatever. But they are secretly working on a plan with Mexico under the surface. So the Schlieffen Plan is in effect. They are going through Belgium, but the French stopped them at the first Battle of the Marne. So the Germans, the Marne is a river in France. The Germans try to go over the river and the French stop them. Now, the Germans are moving from east to west, trying to cross in. But now, since they're stopped, now they go north along Belgium to try to flank the French and come down around, down and around. But the French kind of match them, and they eventually end up in a stalemate, basically 300 miles long from south to north. And that's where the kind of stalemate happens. And that's where they start digging their trenches. And
the Western Front.
The Western Front is established. Yeah, so that's in the West. Now, in the East, Germany is fighting Russia. Russia's finally got that big old war engine started. Russia has a really, really big army, but they are not well coordinated. They move really slow. Tsar Nicholas actually tries to command the soldiers himself, but he's not a soldier. So, there are a lot of strategic blunders that happen. I mentioned in the first episode, radio communications are a thing in limited degrees, but the Russians are communicating their troop movements and all that stuff over unencrypted radio. So it's not coded. They're basically just getting on the radio in Russian. So if you speak Russian, you can understand what they're saying. We're going to move 100,000 troops north to northeast tomorrow at 3:00. And the Germans would just hear that and say, okay, put everyone here, and then just bomb the hell out of them there. So another factor in the speed of war is the rail system. So the rail system in Europe is really well established. Funny thing about that is that the track sizes, the widths of the tracks in Germany versus France, are different.
Oh, interesting.
So they couldn't just roll German trains onto French. They thought ahead. The French did. So that's why they kind of couldn't just punch through on the train lines. They had to get off and walk. But it was a similar thing for Russia into Germany too. They couldn't just roll millions of soldiers into Germany, so they ended up having to walk a lot of it, or there weren't that many cars. Mechanized warfare wasn't a thing quite yet. The train system was going to transport a bunch of people to a place, and then we would march to the battle. And Yeah, do you have anything else on the Eastern Front?
So yes, that's the Eastern Front. It's kind of interesting how that part of the issue that Germany has with it is because they're not thinking that Russia will be ready as quick as they end up being ready, and so they end up in the middle of what was supposed to be a quick venture into France. Western Front's now solidified. Now they have to then take troops and have them go all the way back on the other side to face Russia at the same time. So the whole Schlieffen plan of let's just take out France, turn around and do the same thing at Russia. They end up having to split their troops in order to make that happen. And so you don't really hear much about the Eastern Front.
Yeah, because it sucked. Much. It sucked, honestly. The main thing that I found about the Eastern Front is basically like
more snow.
There's a lot of snow. Never try to invade Russia in the winter. The Germans tried that twice. Napoleon tried it. It didn't work before. So the Russians had a lot of strategic blunders, and the Germans were basically able to capitalize on those blunders and kill hundreds of thousands. I think there was one, I can't remember the battle, but where you don't have to know so much about regiment versus division versus army, but an army is 100,000, 200,000 soldiers. So the Russians are moving this hundreds of thousands of soldiers to maneuver for an attack. But again, because they have unencrypted radio transmissions, the Germans pick up on it. The Russians don't talk very well amongst themselves. Their individual leaders of their divisions and groups kind of do whatever they want to. There's not a lot of centralized coordination. So the Russian army of, I think it's 100,000, 150,000 kind of break off, and the Germans are able to surround them and just destroy almost all of them. A lot of them are captured. And that story kind of plays out multiple times on the Eastern Front. There's some battling back and forth. The Russians aren't always steamrolled. They do win, some of them, but not significantly enough. There's not enough coordination. And once winter sets in, it kind of sucks for everyone.
Yeah. Dang. Yeah, it's kind of similar too with, I don't know that much about the Italian front, but I know that there was fighting in the mountains and stuff, and there would be, they would create avalanches as a defense mechanism.
Yeah, the Italian Alps are something else. So, Italy initially was...
Spoiler, Italy joins the war.
Italy joins the war. Initially, they were on the side of the Central Powers, but then once they realized, hey, this is an offensive war, you're trying to take out Serbia, they kind of didn't want any part of it. They were neutral for a second, and then they're well, join the Allies here. And so now Austro-Hungary is fighting Italy, which is a pretty close neighbor. But again, if you think of
there's a lot of Italian-speaking people in some of the territories that Austria-Hungary have. And so that's kind of well, if you fight with us, we'll give you that.
Yeah, you can have some of this land back. It's or we can just join the Allies and beat you and take it. Because we don't really much like you. But so if you think of the Western Front being horizontal trenches, fighting in the mountains is vertical trenches. So people are shooting up and down. You have to climb a whole mountain to get up to this thing, and then people have cannons. They're shooting down at you. It's just it's bad. The Italian Front is a whole different thing. Austria-Hungary, again, keeping with the little brother big brother analogy, they're trying to hold their own, but they're not.
Yeah, Austria-Hungary ends up being a lot more talk.
Yeah, they kind of suck. They kind of sucked.
Serbia is beating them.
Yes,
it's a little teeny Serbia, and so Germany has to keep bailing them out. So
while fighting two fronts against the French who hate them and the Russians who hate them less, but also have way more people. So Austria-Hungary is kind of getting their ass kicked this whole time, not really taking any territory, losing a lot of men, and also internally. The whole thing that started this was the cultural differences and divisions within Austria-Hungary. Now you're fighting a war and you're losing. And so those divisions keep intensifying. Eventually, that comes to fruition, but yeah, it's not great for Austria-Hungary.
Yeah. And so, like I said in the beginning, part one, I think it was, where Germany actually, even though it's a 2 versus 7 with Germany and Austria-Hungary versus the world.
It's really just Germany.
Yeah, they can handle it up until now these other countries keep joining the opposite side. And so it ends up being way too overwhelming. And even with the fact that we haven't talked about Japan yet, they end up joining around the same time. I think Italy did. And so they see us more, and this is kind of where it's not really as war for morality like World War II is, and more just in terms of
clear good guys.
Right. Bad guys. It's more of just an opportunity.
Yeah.
So Japan, just like the US, just like Germany, want to be the biggest player on the field, and
Mhm.
so they want to be the big empire, basically. So Japan uses that opportunity to try to infiltrate a lot of like occupied islands on
Mhm.
the South Pacific that Germany has that they don't have enough resources to pay
Yeah.
attention to, really.
Yeah,
And
they're
so
very busy in
yeah,
Central Europe. They're not going to send a bunch of people. Well, they can't. They're blockaded
yes, yeah,
by the British, so they can't send reinforcements out to Samoa.
yeah.
The Japanese are more than happy to take those islands. That won't come back to bite us later.
Yeah. So that's basically the whole story on Japan.
Yeah,
being in
that's what Japan did. Kind of also. So let's not forget the Ottoman Empire.
Yes, we haven't talked about them in a while.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the Ottoman Empire is think of like Turkey and like south down there. They are. We mentioned it in part one, but they are what did the British call them? Like the sick man of Europe. They're an empire in decline. And so basically, from what I was able to gather from my research, they are looking at this war and they're saying, okay, the Russians want to take us over. The Western Europeans want to take us over. Like we're caught in the middle of this thing. But if we side with the Central Powers, then maybe we can hold on to a little bit of our autonomy and have a little bit more bargaining power. Because if we side with the Allies in the Western Europeans, they're going to carve us up anyways, and there's some bad blood there anyways. So the Ottoman Empire sides with the Central Powers. Now, what the Allies try to do is they try to sail around to a city called Gallipoli, and they are trying to basically they're trying to occupy the Dardanelles, which is like a straight around, like put it on the map. That's where the Dardanelles are. And the Allies severely underestimate the Ottoman Empire, specifically the Australians and New Zealanders go down there, and they're basically repelled. Like 3 or 4 of their ships are sunk by sea mines that are placed on there. So they're already down some ships. The Ottomans have a lot of fixed gun positions that are shooting down at them as they're trying. Like it's mountainous down there. It's like a not sheer cliffs like Dover, but it's mountainous. So trying to do an amphibious landing from water onto the land. I think D-Day, but in 1914,
Yeah.
or 1915, 16. It's not successful. They basically can't. They can't find a foothold down there, and they're basically repelled, and they have to retreat from there. Down in like the Middle East, like we'll bring up Lawrence of Arabia. So again, this is a world war. I'm like, we're not spending as much time on this as we could, but like these are all the factors and how these people come in. And so the Ottoman Empire is in the Turkey and near the Middle East, North Africa type area. The native Arab population there has bad blood with the Ottoman Empire. So the British send, what's his name? T.E. Lawrence. He's like he's working with the native Arab population to try to overthrow the Ottoman Empire and destabilize them from within. Partially to help win the war, but also partially because there's oil down there and the Allies need oil to run their ships and all that stuff. So like that's a side issue, but it's an advantageous side issue. So that's what Lawrence of Arabia is doing down there, trying to destabilize the Ottomans down in the Middle East. So that's what's kind of happening there. And let's not forget, every time there's a big battle, like 250,000, 500,000 people are either dying or being wounded, or like at this point in the war, we're basically 1915, 1916, somewhere in there. There's already like 3 million plus casualties.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. So now remember how we said like the Schlieffen plan was to flank in behind the French through Belgium, but they didn't really get all the way around, and so they fought north through Belgium. The first Battle of Ypres is Ypres. It's a French word, but normal Americans say Ypres instead of trying to butcher it in French. The first Battle of Ypres is like the establishment of like, nope, you're not going here. We're going to settle the Western Front and all the trenches there. Fast forward like a year and a half to the second Battle of Ypres. This is the only reason I mention it is because this is the first battle that the Germans use. They use chlorine gas on mostly French. There are some Canadians and British. The funny thing about gas is that it depends on where the wind is blowing. So like the wind
Don't piss in the wind.
Yeah, don't throw chlorine gas into the wind. basically they have all these gas canisters, and there had been a Hague Convention basically saying you can't shoot chemical like munitions. But the Germans were like, well, if we don't shoot them, but we just have them in like canisters on the ground and then open those up, like that's not technically shooting them. So they have, they say, okay, when the wind starts blowing towards them, open the gas and then let it go. So that's like in 1915 is like the first large scale chemical warfare attack at the Second Battle of Ypres. And the thing of it is, we talk about like chemical warfare being like so horrendous and scary because it poisons the air. It's a big scary, like, you know, the poison cloud, like the green ickiness. That's what chlorine gas looked like. It didn't kill a bunch of people necessarily. Like it killed plenty, like 100,000 people over the course of the war, or casualties, not just kill, because whatever. No. It wasn't the main driver of death. The main driver was artillery. Mm-hmm. They shot something like 1 billion artillery shells or something crazy like that. Yeah. But the psychological impact of there's just a poison cloud now. How do we even fight? Like people are running, like the psychological PTSD, they didn't call it PTSD back then, post-traumatic stress disorder, they called it shell shock. Mm-hmm. A lot of that was just randomly having explosions go off all day, every day for 3 straight years. That would probably mess you up. But now the air is poison. So there's no way you can rest. You can't really escape it. Like try to outrun the wind. You can't do it. So, yeah, the Germans did it first. And instead of like a normal person thinking, oh my God, this is just too terrible, the British were like, this is terrible. We need to do it ourselves. The funny, not funny thing about it is when the British tried to use chlorine gas, they dispersed the gas and then it blew back into their faces. So they were a little bit more strategic going forward with how they used chemical weapons, which you'd think that you would think ahead of that. But, you know, it's a massive, massive war. We're trying to win this war with every available thing, and we're just going to go off half-cocked. Sure, strap a tank of diesel fuel to this dude's back. I don't care what happens to him after that. Sure, release the poison gas. Oh, it blew back in our faces. We didn't think of that, but whatever. So that's the Second Battle of Ypres. Now, that's 1915. Now we'll go to 1916 with a battle that everyone's probably heard of, but whatever, is Verdun. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about that one?
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I think, especially with the shell shock thing, I think Verdun is a huge example of the effects of that. So there was like, 60 million shells, or it's kind of what's agreed upon, that were used during that. This battle was like 303 days long. And I think whenever people think of artillery, like used in this way, like shell shock, they think, you know, boom, 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 boom. But it was more of like a drum roll, like boom, 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 boom. So you think of that like for weeks at a time. And it's basically like we can only win by just wearing down our enemy. And so the Battle of Verdun, which with Germany and France, and this is like right on the Western Front and stuff, is, I guess, like I said, like the clearest example of that. There's like one French soldier, I'll put his name up, I can't remember who it was, but he had said that he had shown up with 170 men in his regiment and left with 34 of them. So yeah, there was over 800,000 casualties, and about 70% of those who died were from artillery shells.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and remember too, like the French didn't wear helmets early in the war.
Yeah,
they just wore hats. The British just wore hats, like, until they started realizing, oh, all of our guys are getting wounded or killed because of the artillery fragmentation that is just spraying out at constant rates. So we should probably put like a pot or something on their heads. Don't make it bulletproof. That's too heavy. But just make it so that like the flaming hot pieces of metal just sort of knock them out, not kill them outright. So yeah, like the sheer volume, like 60 million artillery shells. Like you can do the math.
You can still go to the Battle of Verdun now, and there's I don't remember what the number was, but there's a ton of shells that never went off.
Yeah, like 30% of the British shells were duds.
Yeah, and so it still looks like that even today. where it's like, I mean, the land's never going to be livable or anything, and so it's like it looks like craters on the moon, basically. So yeah, it's crazy how much the sheer amount of shells that didn't even go off, and yet there was still 60 million shells that were used.
shoot everything all the time. Yeah, and the other thing with World War II, or not World War II, World War I, is that like a lot of these battles, number one, like Verdun was almost a year long, and there's not like a winner or a loser.
Yeah, right.
Nothing really changed. Like almost 1 million casualties, and maybe the lines moved 100 yards or 200 yards, and then they would, because what can you do? You either have to stay in your trench and wait for one of the 60 million shells to just fall right next to you and blow you up, or almost worse, for it to be a dud and just land there and just stare at it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to go off or not. Avoid all the poison gas that happens from time to time. And if you try to go up over the edge of the trench and, do what you can to save yourself. Like if we can attack them and take those guns out, maybe they'll stop shooting at us. Now you have big, wide open expanses of mud and bodies and barbed wire that is just set up there to trap. Like, have you ever been caught in barbed wire? It's not fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun. It hurts and you get all tangled up in it. Worse than that, now there's just a whole line of machine guns that are just shooting, just mowing you down. It's just not possible. And a lot of, in the early years of the war, a lot of the generals kind of on both sides were still sticking to this, like, yeah, we'll just send a mass charge of 10,000 guys and some of them will get through and then we can take this trench. Well, that works if you don't have machine guns pointing at you.
Yeah.
It doesn't otherwise. They were still trying to do like cavalry charges early on in the war. It's like, that's not good either. None of that's going to work. So the Somme also happened. The Somme was in response to Verdun. So the British kind of pulled, this is where the tanks, the Mark I tank kind of came up, is the Somme. Because you have these big holes in the ground, the big trenches, and we're just going to kind of go over them. And because there's machine guns, we need to build a metal box that won't like let everyone die. And if we can get over there and punch a hole through the defensive line of the Germans, then some of the soldiers can kind of funnel through and maybe we'll get through that way. It kind of sort of not really worked at all because tanks would just kind of tip over and kind of get stuck and they would break down because it's 1914. We only discovered the combustion engine like 10 seconds ago. Now we're putting it in a big metal box, like whatever. That was like 1 million casualties.
Yes.
No, this is not on one side or the other, but like combined, 1 million total casualties. And again, just like Verdun, they didn't really gain any territory. They didn't punch through. It wasn't a decisive victory. There was just a lot of human death and suffering for basically nothing. Well, what are we going to do? We're at a standstill. Well, okay. Here's the thing. While this is happening on the Western Front, meanwhile in Russia, Russia loses.
Yeah, that's right. They end up pulling out actually like before the U.S. even gets in. So.
Yes. So Russia has lost a lot of men. They have lost a ton of resources, and they are dealing with the Russian Revolution.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey guys, we tried our best. Das Vidanya. Good luck with that. We're going to go back over here. Don't try to invade us. It's way too cold. So Russia is out of the war. And that sends a very clear signal to Germany and Austria-Hungary. We might win this thing.
Yeah.
This is our chance. Coincidentally, around, what is it, April 1917?
April 6th.
April 6th, 1917. After the Zimmermann Telegraph, where basically Germany is trying to coerce Mexico into attacking the United States. Mexico really has nothing. They don't want that smoke. But the U.S. catches wind of that and they say, oh, hell no. And we get all ghetto and decide this is the thing. We're going to mobilize a couple months after we find out that. So now this is 1917. Near the tail end of the war, but they don't know that at this point.
Yeah.
But the U.S. has now mobilized.
It kind of becomes the tail end of the war because the U.S. get involved.
Because a lot of guys think we didn't win the war. We might still be fighting World War One today if it wasn't for us. Yep. I didn't say that. A lot of people say it. No, we mobilize. We get to work, and this is a real shot in the arm for the French and the British because they are on their last legs too. Germany is now sending like the big zeppelins over
Yeah.
to drop bombs on Britain. Not ultra effective, but scary as hell. France is just running out of people. And the Germans are making some headways in not breaking through to Paris, but I think the closest they got was like 40 miles or so. They get back to that original choke point of the Marne.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the U.S. comes in 1917. We bring close to 1 million.
Yeah.
Close to 1 million soldiers.
We have a draft. You have the birth of the Uncle Sam propaganda poster.
Yes.
People who in America who are talking negatively about the war, about the army, are getting arrested.
That's one way to get it all.
Yep. So, but you know what? Gosh dang it. It was all worth it.
It was all worth it in the end. So that's April of 1917. The Americans come. We don't turn the tide immediately until basically 1918 with the Second Battle of the Marne. So again, Germany has ostensibly defeated Russia in the east. They can now turn all their attention towards France. Meanwhile, Austria-Hungary is basically out of the war as well. Their internal struggles have destabilized the monarchy so much that their ability to wage war is basically nothing. The Ottomans are kind of in a similar situation. Lawrence of Arabia is kind of doing his work, and they're weak, if not totally out at this point. So the Germans say, okay, we're going to take this one home. We're going to go to where it started, is the Marne. Now, in 1918, the Americans are now backing up the French at the Marne River. Interesting, the 3rd Infantry Division, which has their sort of nickname as the Rock of the Marne, because when the French were kind of trying to retreat and regroup, the Americans there stayed and held back the Germans. So and the French commander said, oh, they're kind of like a rock in the middle of the river. So my dad actually was not in World War I, but in the 90s, his infantry division was the 3rd Infantry Division. So that's living history for you.
Yeah.
I managed to work it in, clunky as it is. So the Second Battle of the Marne is kind of the turning point, because Germany's last push with all their might and all their soldiers that have been taken from Russia and now moved over west has been repelled, and the Allies turn around and do a counterattack. And now, for kind of the first time, the Germans are on the defense. They've been blockaded this whole time, and now the Americans are fresh. They have new soldiers who haven't been sitting in holes in the mud for 3 straight years. And so that leads to the, how do you even pronounce it? Moose Argonne?
Oh, yeah.
The Moose Argonne offensive. The U.S. is not fully alone in this, but we are a major driver in it. So that's a counterattack after the Second Battle of the Marne. And we really push into Germany, and it's kind of like a backbreaking blow for the Germans. And that's kind of where,
I guess, everything's really starts. The ending is starting to to see the light.
It is the beginning of the end, for sure. Now, at this point, when I was researching this, I asked myself, why is Germany still fighting? Because the whole thing started because Austria-Hungary was mad at Serbia. Austria-Hungary has lost, essentially. Russia is out of this thing. So they can do their original plan, and it still wasn't working. Like, the Ottomans are basically done. They don't really have any more cards to play. Why are you still fighting? I think by the time the Americans showed up, the Germans are not trying to win the war. They're trying to get enough leverage so that when they call for a peace treaty, they have a little bit more leverage. That doesn't work out at all. You have a bunch of pissed off French people and some Americans who have been in for around a year or so. After the Second Battle of the Marne, they go on what's called the 100 Days Offensive. And that's basically their full court press counterattack. And again, Germany has been blockaded, so their economy is in shambles. Their people are starving. There's a naval mutiny where a not insignificant part of the German Navy kind of says, why are we still fighting? The Ottoman Empire is done. Bulgaria has surrendered. Austria-Hungary has kind of broken apart internally. And then kind of the last thing is the Kaiser abdicates in November of 1918.
Mhm.
So now it's basically done. And it's not like a final decisive, like the Mexican-American War is like, we took the capital, we took Berlin, and we won the war. Like, that's not how it happened. It kind of sort of just pooped out. Germany they just got
shafted, basically.
They did. They just ran out of stuff.
The Treaty of Versailles is basically just Germany has to take the blame for everything. And
it's your fault, and you have to pay us $70 bajillion forever and ever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it's okay. Let's all just keep fighting for the next couple hours until.
Yes, because we
need this to be poetic. Yeah,
yes,
it has to be 11, 11, 11.
Yes.
So, yeah, man, it's just so crazy how that, like, the disconnect. I know we mentioned it before, but I think it's illustrated really well in All Quiet on the Western Front.
Mm-hmm.
Just that whole thing with like, yeah, the politicians versus the soldiers, and it's just like two different planets, and it's like they don't even see them as like people. They're just like, okay, cool, we got 20 minutes. Like, let's show them who's boss real quick, and then we'll end. And then you got like another thousands of people who. There's like one. There's a story of like the guy the last soldier who died in the war, and he knew it was like over in a couple minutes, and he just like charges in anyway, just to give it one last go, and then gets killed.
Yeah, like for what? We're gonna go to Paris. Yeah. I'm just gonna keep charging to Paris. Yeah, it's. I don't know. It's like in 1917, where it's like some men just like to fight.
Yeah.
It's. I think World War I is, again, like a case study in how the human ability and technology to destroy things far outpaces our like thinking part of our brain of like, hey, do we agree that this is done? Okay, let's just be done right now. Mm-hmm. Like a normal person would be like, can we please stop? But yeah, like you said, it's just a completely different planet. Like, oh, we're changing history, so it has to be significant in this way, as if ending a war that killed tens of millions and wounded.
Don't worry, everyone's going to remember this forever.
Yeah, so and we'll be remembered fondly for this, I'm sure.
Yeah,
it like World War I was, in a good way and a bad way, it was so meticulously like documented that we have the numbers of like 1 billion artillery shells, 10 billion rounds of ammunition, and so many pounds of chlorine gas and phosgene gas, and like just like the industrial scale of this war, and just like the devastation that it put on everyone, on the world, honestly. Mm-hmm. And then you just like the follow-on effects of that too, of like PTSD, and people not understanding, like, because I don't know, if you haven't been to war, you don't know what it's like. And when your entire culture basically your civilian culture sees war as like this glorious, heroic thing, because that's how it's been forever. And then you come back and you like, someone closes a door too loud and you jump out of your skin. Like, what are you, a sissy? It's like, no, like I've seen man-made horrors beyond human comprehension for years, and I just barely escaped. And yeah, loud noises freak me out because I was shelled with 60 million shells for a year straight. Like, you can't even possibly imagine. And yeah, it's just the sheer scale of the war. And it is definitely a cautionary tale of like, don't be a sore winner, because the conditions that were set up by the Treaty of Versailles against Germany definitely they were the cause of World War II. I mean, not the like direct cause, but like if there had not been such harsh economic penalties on Germany that crippled their already crippled economy, maybe they wouldn't have had. Who knows? We don't have to play that game for another 3 presidents, but but yeah, that's. I don't know. That's World War I. I feel sad now. Okay. this was less fun than
waiting so long.
I was waiting so long, and then I was like, oh yeah,
this suck.
This is the most destructive conflict in human history so far.
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts about World War I?
I think we got it.
We don't want to talk about it anymore. Don't worry, we'll be back.
I need to go hug my family now. So
you're not drafting me. I don't care what you say. I'm not going.
Yeah, great. Okay. I think we finally did it.
We did do it. Who's president next?
Harding.
Oh.
Teapot Dome. God. Everything goes back to business as usual.
Just boring administrative stuff. When do we get to the good part? 1938?
Yeah, pretty much. Unless the Great Depression is, you want to be sad again.
The Great Depression, it wasn't so great.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, we'll jump off that bridge.
Until then, thank you everyone for joining us. Again, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.